Act 2 today. I know we've spent, I think, 3 days so far in Act 1, maybe 4. I was just going through the recordings and labeling them a little bit better today. And I went back to one of my previous classes of this class and spent 7 days on Hamlet. So we're not doing too bad, assuming we don't get bogged down, which we will in Act 3 and Act 5. Okay, so Act 2. We open with a room in Polonius' house again, and Polonius is talking to a servant named Reynaldo, okay? And we're not going to spend hardly any time talking about this, other than to say, what does Polonius tell Reynaldo to do? If you remember, when we've talked about themes of the play, what am I suggesting is the number one theme? Spying, watching, observing. What does Polonius tell Reynaldo to do? Go to Paris and do what? Observe, spy on his son. He wants to see if Laertes is following the advice he was given. Right? And kind of notice how in telling Reynaldo to do this, Polonius is really even not following his own advice. I mean, kind of everything that he says goes against this idea. Okay? So, Ophelia comes in. And she comes in, and notice how Polonius addresses her. Because in his address, I think that Shakespeare giving us a little bit of stage direction for how Ophelia should come in. She's not just walking in. Okay? She comes in distressed. She comes in frantic, running, maybe, hand shaking. How now, Ophelia? What's the matter? What's up? What's going on? And she says, I've been so frightened. And he asks, why? How? What happened? My lord, as I was sewing in my closet, that is, in her room, Lord Hamlet, with his doublet all embraced, no hat upon his head, his stockings fouled and gartered and down jived to his ankle, pale as his shirt, his knees knocking each other, blah, 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 he comes before her. Now, the description she's just given of Hamlet fits a medieval and Renaissance description or diagnosis of lovesickness. It was an actual medical diagnosis. Okay? Notice what she says again. He came in, his doublet all unbraced. That's this. So he's not got his clothes tied or properly buttoned. Okay? He's not wearing a hat. And in the context of the play, proper attire for a young man is a hat. Okay? His stockings are fouled. That is, what should be pulled up here and tightened with the garter are rolled down around his ankles. Pale as his shirt. His knees knocking together. And with a look so piteous and purport as if he had been loosed out of hell to speak of horrors. Now, it wasn't quite the exact, or it wasn't quite the very last thing Hamlet said. But in the previous scene, at the end of Act 1, what did Hamlet tell Marcellus, Horatio, and the others? If I should put on an antic disposition, don't give out that you know what I'm doing. So, the very next time we see Hamlet, that is, we see him in Ophelia's description of him, he has an antic disposition. He looks crazy. Okay? Notice, Polonius takes her description and applies a diagnosis. Mad for thy love? Mad means what? It doesn't have our modern American understanding of that word. Crazy. See, we tend to say, mad as a hornet. That is, angry. It's not what it means in British English. It means crazy, insane. Insane for thy love? I don't know. But I fear it. What did he say? He took me by the wrist and held me hard. That is, he grabbed her by the hand, and then what? Then goes he to the length of his arm. So he grabs her by the hand, and he kind of does this. Okay? And with his other hand over his brow, he falls to such perusal of my face. So he kind of does this, and then he looks at her. Like inches away. Thrice his head, thus waving up and down, he raised a sigh so piteous and profound as it did seem to shatter all his bulk and end his being. Now, go back to one of the first things we hear Hamlet say. It's in response to his mother saying that his father's death seems particular to him. And Hamlet says, "Seems, madam? Nay, I know not seems." And he talks about tears and sighing, clothes. He says, these are all things a man may play, that is, pretend. Well, what's Hamlet? If we take that speech of Hamlet and apply it here, he might be pretending. Okay? Polonius, come on, we got to go talk to the king. Why? He needs to tell the king that Hamlet's in love with his daughter? Yeah, partially. Okay? Because remember, Hamlet's next in line. This could have ramifications for the kingdom. Okay? So, Polonius says, line 106, have you given him any hard words of late? That is, have you spoken ill to Hamlet? Have you been mean to him? Have you called him a dirty, rotten, whatever? And she says, no, I did as you command. I did repel his letters and denied his access to me. Repel his letters, that is, he's still sending her letters. And she put, return to sender, address not known, And she closed her door to him. That hath made him mad. He's crazy because of that. I'm sorry that with better heat and judgment I had not quoted him, and you got a little gloss there. Quoted, where's the line? Man, I can't read. I can't find it. That I had not, he says, by quoted, properly understood him and related what was really going on to him to you. Because remember, in his speech with Ophelia, what did he say was Hamlet's motivation? His earlier speech. Right after Laertes warns her. Springs to catch woodcocks. He says about his tenders of affection. Hamlet was simply trying to get you in bed. Now he's saying, I was wrong. Hamlet really does love you. And you repelled him, and therefore he's gone crazy. Okay? So we go to scene 2. The king and queen come in with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, friends of Hamlet's. Okay? And the king says, I don't know what's bothering Hamlet. I think it has something to do with his father's death. Therefore, line 10, I entreat you both that being of so young days brought up with him, that is, you were brought up with him from his youth, from his earliest days, and since so neighbor to his youth and behavior that you vouchsafe your rest here in our court some little time, and that is, stay here for a while, here, that is, at the castle, okay, and do what? So much as from occasion you may glean whether aught to us unknown afflicts him thus. Spy on him. Watch him. Report to us what you discover. Okay? So the queen begs them to do that. They say, okay. Okay. They leave. Polonius comes in. Bottom of page 1630. Okay. And first some ambassadors come in, Voltermont and such, and the king sends them off. Bottom of 1631. Polonius says, My liege and madam, to expostulate what majesty should be, what duty is, why day is day, night, night, and time is time, were nothing but to waste night, day, and time. That is, to expostulate, to explain what majesty should be, what duty is, that is, what one owes to somebody else, why day. There's not enough time to talk about all these. Therefore, since brevity is the soul of wit, and tediousness the limbs and outward flourishes, I will be brief. Your noble son is mad. Okay, now, notice, he isn't very brief, is he? He says brevity is the soul of wit. It takes him a long time to get to that. That could be Shakespeare's little pun indicating Polonius isn't as witty, as intelligent as he thinks he is. Okay? So he goes on and says, he's mad. Mad call I it, for to define true madness, what is it but to be nothing else but mad? But let that go. And that's why the Queen says, more matter, less art. Less art means less rhetoric, less oratorical flourishes. Get to the point. Okay? I use no art at all. That he is mad, 'tis true. 'Tis true, 'tis pity. That is, because he's mad, we should pity him. So he says, mad let us grant him. That is, take for the purpose of argument, he is mad. And now remains that we find out the cause of this effect. We have to find out why he is mad. Okay? Or he says, rather, the cause of this defect. Right? Because to be mad is to be defective. And he goes on. I have a daughter. Have while she is mine. And there's that little theme that we saw back in Midsummer Night's Dream. Aegeus says Hermia is his to do with what he wants. Polonius is saying, she's my daughter while she's mine. When she gets married, she'll be somebody else's, kind of an idea. Who, in her duty and obedience, Mark hath given me this. And he gives them a letter. This is one of the letters Hamlet wrote to her. And so he reads it. Okay? And the Queen says, came this from Hamlet to her? He says, hold on, let me finish. And he finishes reading the letter. King, Claudius then asked, line, 128 or so, how hath she received his love? Notice what the king is assuming. Hamlet loves her. Okay? How has she received it? That is, has she reciprocated his love? Polonius, what do you think of me? That's not an answer, right? It's not a direct answer to his question. What does Polonius mean? What do you think of me? He's kind of saying, let's put it in a presidential context. And let's say, let me use President Obama, because he had two young daughters, relatively young daughters, unmarried. One of them, in this day, marriageable age, the older one, can't remember which one was the older one. But let's say Obama has an advisor, and it's not actually Obama's daughters, they're the advisor's daughters. And Obama had a son old enough to wed. And the advisor says, I have a daughter, this one, and your son, okay? And so he says, but how did she receive? What he's asking is, did she kind of stab my son in the back? Did she cut him down? And so when he asks that question, the advisor says, what do you take me for? I mean, do you think I would let her do that? That's what Polonius means. Do you think I would let her just, well, that is kind of what he told her to do. So, what do you think of me? As of a man faithful and honorable. That is, you are faithful to me, you are loyal to me, and you're honorable. You wouldn't do something wrong. Polonius, I would fain prove, I would like to be proven so. But what might you think when I'd seen this hot love on the wing, as I perceived it, I must tell you that, before my daughter told me, What might you or my dear majesty, your queen here, think if I had played the desk or table book or given my heart a winking, mute and dumb? That is, if I hadn't done anything, then what would you think of me? Okay? He says, no, I went round to work. But once I found out, I got busy. I told my daughter, Hamlet is out of thy star. And Shakespeare is using there an old conception of the universe called the geocentric or Ptolemaic, named after a Greek guy named Ptolemy, which says the earth is at the center of the universe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And there are 9 concentric spheres that surround the earth. Okay? You've got, this isn't included here. You've got the moon, but then you've got each sphere, and outside here is God. Okay? And each of these moves, and each of these is guided by some kind of celestial body, a planet, a star, etc. This is the whole basis for astrology, because these move. And when you're born, where one of these planets or stars is at your birth will determine what kind of person you will be, etc. Okay? So he says, Hamlet is out of thy star. He's kind of like saying, Ophelia, this is your orbit. Hamlet's way out here. We would say out of your league. Because Ophelia is like, minor's, 3 level in Hamlet's major league. Okay? This must not be. You can't be anything with him. Okay? So he says, and she rebuffed Hamlet, and therefore he's gone mad. King, do you think 'tis so? King asked that of Gertrude. It may be like. Polonius, hath there been such a time that I positively said 'tis so when it proved otherwise? That is, have I ever been wrong to you in advising you? King, not that I know of. And Polonius points to his head and his shoulder and says, take this from this if this be otherwise. Notice that's foreshadowing. Take my head from my shoulder if I'm wrong. Kill me if I'm wrong. Well, the king isn't going to, but he is wrong. He's definitely wrong. And because he's just said that, that's what's going to happen to him. Okay? So, king, how can we prove this? How may we try it further? Try means put it to the trial. See those verbs, try, and the noun form, trial, is related to prove and test. All 3 of these essentially mean the same thing. Let's do a science experiment. Test is related to the word for like test tube. Let's put it in, let's boil it, and let's resolve the situation. Kind of like when Hamlet said, that this too solid flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself. Okay? That's alchemical language. He's talking about refining something. So, the king asks, how can we test this idea? Polonius, notice what he suggests. Hamlet likes to walk in the gallery for hours at a time. Yeah. At such a time, what's the verb he uses to describe what he's going to do with his daughter? What's the next word? I'll loose my daughter to him. Is there any other context when we use that verb in that kind of fashion? Setting a beast loose, it's close. Loose hounds for the hunt. You loose the dogs to chase the prey, to go hunt. to chase out the birds, to chase out the rabbits, to chase out the foxes. It's a very particular construction. Notice what he's just said. I'm going to set my daughter loose for the hunt. Okay? So therefore, what does Ophelia become? She's now part of the spying apparatus. Okay? And he says, be you and I behind an arras then. Okay? So think of the stage. Stage looks like this. You've got the back there, and you've got doors there, and you have curtains, okay, that can be closed or drawn open. Left drawn open, it's a regular doorway. If the curtains are there, then it can be a window or something else. So he says, when we see Hamlet starting to walk on that gallery, I'll loose my daughter on him. And he says, be you and I behind an arras then. So Ophelia will come in. Hamlet will already be out here somewhere. And he says, you and I will stand behind an arras. Like that. If they're behind the arras, then they are still on the stage. They're just hidden. In fact, if anything, part of them could probably be seen if you looked very carefully. Their toes. This is going to be really important later on. So, the king, we will try it. That is, we will prove this thesis of yours, and we will prove this means of testing of yours. Cool. So, Hamlet comes in. Notice, this isn't when they're going to loose Ophelia on him. So, Hamlet comes in, and he's got a book. The king and queen step out, okay, and Polonius goes up to him to talk to him. Do you know me, my lord? Excellent, well, you are a fishmonger. Your gloss, an appropriate expression meaning bawd, procurer. How many of you know what a bawd is? B-A-W-D. It's an idiotic footnote for a quote-unquote introduction to literature textbook. It means pimp or madam. You're someone who sells flesh for sex. Not a slave trader, but a pimp. Someone who owns girls and tells them to go have sex with this guy for this much money, bring me the money. Or a madam, same thing. Okay? So Hamlet says, yeah, I know you. You're a pimp. Not I, my lord. You're like, what the? He's really gone. Then I would you were so honest a man. Honest? I, sir, to be honest as this world goes, to be one man picked out of 10,000. In this world, to be honest, is to be one out of 10,000. But notice he says the fishmonger, pimp, is honest. Why? Do you go to a pimp to buy stocks? Do you go to a pimp to get your car washed? Do you go to a pimp to get your, bathroom fixed? No, you go to a pimp for one reason. You know what you're going to get. And you're going to get what you pay for. That's pretty honest. Okay? That's Hamlet's point. Okay? So, Polonius says, yeah, that's true, my lord. There is only 1 in 10,000 are true or honest. In Midsummer Night's Dream, Puck said it's 1 in a million. Hamlet, for if the sun breed maggots in a dead dog, being a good kissing carrion, have you a daughter? Now notice what Hamlet has just linked. Carrion, or C-A-R-I-O-N, rotting flesh, maggots, and we could just put it in plural, daughters. What? Have you a daughter? I have, my lord. Let her not walk in the sun. Conception is a blessing, but as your daughter may conceive, friend, look to it. What the hell is he talking about? how are you going to conceive from walking in the sun? Well, go find somewhere in Rutherford County, because you can find it on most roads, go find fresh roadkill. Find a deer that's been struck. And the first day, the deer looks fine other than being dead. I mean, it looks like it's sleeping almost. And go back the next day, and go back the next day, and go back the next day, and go back the next day. And once the vultures get hold of it, and there's raw flesh, what are you going to see after about day 3 or 4? Maggots crawling all over it. Well, where do those maggots come from? We now know they come from, germ, essentially. Shakespeare, they didn't know that. They thought maggots were caused by the sun impregnating that carrion flesh. And that's what the maggots come from. So notice what he says. Do you have a daughter? Yes. Don't let her walk in the sun. She might get pregnant. Okay? Notice Polonius' response is an aside to us, the audience. Hamlet doesn't hear this. How say you by that? Still harping on my daughter. Yet he knew me now. Said it was a fishmonger. It's far gone, far gone. And truly, nice little backstory information here. In my youth, I suffered much extremity for love. In other words, I was almost this crazy too. Very near this. So, I'll speak to him again. What's the matter, my lord? What do you read, my lord? Words, 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 right? Because he's got a book. No, I mean, what is the matter? That is, what is the matter of what you are reading? Hamlet takes what's the matter the exact same way we would. What do you mean, what's the matter? Between who? He's taking matter there to mean conflict. No, what's the matter that you read? Oh, slanders. For the satirical rogue says here that old men of gray beards, blah, 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 blah. Okay? Polonius gets an aside again. Though this be madness, yet there is method in it. That is, what Hamlet just said is, bitch, you know what, crazy. But it kind of makes sense. See, if he was really crazy, there wouldn't be any sense to it. There wouldn't be any logic to it. So it's kind of like, Polonius is a bit stumped. So, Polonius says, will you walk out of the air, my lord? And he means, Hamlet, will you come with me out of this indoor room, this gallery, and walk out to the balcony? Hamlet, into my grave. Indeed, that's out of the air. Because if you go into a grave, you're now in the ground. Aside again, how pregnant sometimes his replies are. Notice that language. Carrion, maggots, breeding, daughter, son. His replies are pregnant. They're full of meaning. Okay? Happiness and often madness hits on, which reason and sanity. And again, he kind of goes on. So, Polonius wants to leave now. My honorable lord, I will most humbly take my leave of you. In other words, I've got to go now. I will take my leave. That is, I'm going to say goodbye. See, we don't say, I will take my leave anymore. Hamlet, you cannot, sir, take from me anything that I will more willingly part with all. That is, you can't take from me something that I don't really want. That is, and I don't want you around me. So you can't take your leave from me. Accept my life, accept my life, accept my life. So why does Hamlet throw that out there? You can take my life from me. You can take my life from me. You can take my life from me. Willingly. Hamlet is telling Polonius there, but notice he's doing it within the context of this madness that he wants to die. So one of the big questions about the play is, does Hamlet really want about to die. Is he really contemplating suicide? Well, in his opening soliloquy, he is. Or that the everlasting had not fixed his canon against self-slaughter. I wish God hadn't forbidden suicide. The implication is, if God hadn't forbidden suicide, we wouldn't be talking to Hamlet, because he'd be dead. All right? So, Polonius leaves, and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern come in. All right? And they talk and chat for a while. Marker. And Hamlet asks how they're doing. Top of 1635. They say, as the indifferent children of the earth, that is, we're doing just like everybody else is. We're, life's okay. That is, it's not going great and it doesn't suck. Happy in that we are not over happy. On fortune's cap, okay, here's fortune's wheel. It's always spinning. On fortune's cap, that is the top, he says, we are not the very button. Though he's describing fortune here not as the wheel, but as the goddess who spins the wheel. Okay? So, Guildenstern says, we're not on the top of fortune. We're not on the top of the world. Hamlet, you're not on the soles of her shoes either. You're not down at the bottom. That is, you're not in the pit. Rosencrantz, neither, my lord. Hamlet, then you live about her waist. Okay? Again, because he talked about fortune as a goddess. Or in the middle of her favors. Guildenstern, faith, her privates we. Yes, that's right. We live around her privates. Hamlet, in the secret parts of fortune, oh, most true. She is a strumpet. That is, fortune is a slut. Why? Why is fortune a slut? Because she sleeps with everybody. Everybody has fortune. Everybody has good fortune. Everybody has bad fortune. In fact, it's not just everybody. Everything has good fortune and bad fortune. Because fortune, in one sense, is merely also another word for time. Okay? So, Hamlet says, what's the news? No news, world's grown on us. Hamlet, then is doomsday near. If the world's grown on us, it must be near the end of the world. He says, but you're not true. Come on. Why are you here? What sent you to this prison? Prison? Denmark's prison. Then is the world one, a goodly one, in which there are many confines, wards, and dungeons, Denmark being one of the worst. We think not so, my lord. Hamlet says, Denmark equals a prison. Okay? Rosencrantz and Guildenstern say, we think not so. We don't think Denmark's a prison. Why then 'tis none to you. For there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. To me, it is a prison. For there is nothing neither good nor bad, either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Hamlet says, to me, Denmark's a prison. Why? Because he thinks it's a prison. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern say, we don't think it's a prison, and Hamlet says, then it's not a prison. For you, it's Disney World. Can two people experience something, the same thing, but have totally different perspectives on it? Yes, they can. All right? Why? So Rosencrantz tries to do a little bit of psychoanalysis. Oh, I get it, Hamlet. Here's why Denmark's a prison to you. Your ambition makes it one. 'Tis too narrow for your mind. That is, Denmark is too small for you. You want to be king of more than just Denmark. Because when he mentions ambition, what he's really getting at is, you want to be king, but there's another king. Okay? Hamlet. Oh, God. I could be bounded in a nutshell and count myself a king of infinite space. Now think about what that means. Take a walnut. Go to the store, buy a walnut. Hamlet says, I could be inside that nut, and I would consider myself a king of infinite space. No ending. That is, it would be like the shell is not there. Except for what? What would remind him that he's not a king of infinite space? No. Bad dreams. Bad dreams. Why? What's Hamlet saying about bad dreams? Okay. Where do they come from? Outside the shell. Hamlet's saying, I could be king of everything if it weren't for these dreams that remind me I'm not king of everything. The dreams, he is suggesting, don't come from in here or in here. They don't come, as Freud says, welling up from our subconscious. Hamlet is saying the dreams come from outside, into us. Okay? Which dreams, Guildenstern says, indeed are ambition. That is, you're having those dreams because of your ambition. For the very substance of the ambitious is merely the shadow of a dream. The substance of the ambitious, that is, the thing the ambitious want, he says, is the shadow of a dream. And we're back with the language that Theseus was talking about in A Midsummer Night's Dream. What's he saying? The substance of ambition, he says, is the shadow of a dream. Okay? What's he really getting at? And I've got to take the time, which means probably not going to finish at 2, which I wanted to do, to talk about Plato, allegory of the cave. Plato taught that there are 2 worlds. There's a world of forms, or sometimes it's called ideas or ideals, okay? And there's the world of shadows, okay? The world of shadows is our world. It's the world we experience. The world of forms and ideals, this is the real world. Okay? And the way he expressed that was by an image of an allegory. An allegory is merely a story that means something else. And in this allegory, he gave us this image. There's a cave, okay? And the cave has an opening up here. We'll talk about that later. And in that cave, you've got a wall. You've got a group of people who are seated here on benches. Okay? And they're facing this wall. That's all they can see. They're chained, so they can't turn around. All they see is what's ahead of them on this wall. Behind them, on a platform, you have other people here walking around, going around, doing their business, and behind them is a big fire. Now think of what that's going to do. Wait, do I have that right? Yes. The fire's back here. The fire creates what other than heat? Light. Okay? These people walking around in front of the fire create what that are produced here? Shadows. images on this wall. Okay? These people who are separated from these people, they can't hear them, they can't see them, they don't know they're there. All they see is this. This is their experience of reality. It's our world, Plato says. So, take one of these people, unchain them, walk them back up, take them outside to let them see the quote-unquote real world in what they took to be light here, caused by the fire, is what compared to that? Nothing, right? Compare firelight to the light of the sun. It's a pale imitation. Okay? Plato is saying this right here is our whole experience. We don't see the full picture. We've got to find a way to break out mentally, intellectually of this world to see the real thing up here. Okay? And this light is called one of the things is called the summum bonum. That is the highest good, which is why Plato taught, and his master Socrates taught, we ought to seek the highest good. This is the purpose of human existence, to seek this. Okay? Aristotle, Plato's pupil, his student, disagreed. Because Aristotle said, we can never know this. Or, the only way we can know this is by looking at all the different particulars of this. Here's an example of what I'm getting at. This thing. 955. This is what? Anybody?
Water bottle.
It's a bottle, okay? Use this one. What is this? Yeah, but they're different. Okay? What about this one? It's another water bottle, but they're different, right? Every one of these is different. But what do they all have in common? Their bottleness. Okay? They're all designed to hold a liquid inside. Could they hold something other than a liquid? Yeah, you could put sand in these. It's not what they're designed for, but, it's what they are. What about, this? Because we can go into other classrooms where there are different ones of these, and how does that differ from this? This is padded, it's nice and soft, it reclines, those don't. But they have chairness to them, okay? That is getting at this. In other words, Plato said, somewhere out there in the real world of ideals and forms, there is one bottle. And it has all the characteristics of bottleness that every bottle you have ever seen on the earth has. Similarly, there is one shirt. And it has all the characteristics of shirtness. Okay? So, back to Hamlet and the boys, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. So they say, your ambition is what's making the world too small for you. Okay? Which dreams indeed are ambition, for the very substance of the ambitious is merely the shadow of a dream. It's not here, Hamlet. So Hamlet says, a dream itself is but a shadow. Notice how significant that is. If the dream itself is a shadow, then what is Hamlet really saying? What does every shadow have? Something behind it. Something that the shadow is a shadow of. So Hamlet's saying, if I have a dream, if I'm a king of infinite space, bounded up in a nutshell, and I have bad dreams, then the bad dreams are indications of what? I'm not a king of infinite space. There's something else out there. There's more than I can see. There's more than I can perceive. Okay? Truly, and I behold ambition of so airy and light a quality, the exact same words that Theseus uses when he's talking about imagination. That it is but a shadow's shadow. Ambition is a shadow's shadow. So if we take that to be true, what does Rosencrantz, because I think that was Rosencrantz, what does Rosencrantz want out of life? If ambition is a shadow's shadow, if you're chasing after shadows, he seemingly doesn't want much. He's content with where he is. Because the only people I know of who are totally content with where they are people who have no ambition. They don't want to become better at something. They don't want to become wealthier. They don't want to become wiser. They don't want to become stronger. They don't want to become faster, whatever. Okay? Hamlet. If that's true, then are our beggars' bodies and our monarchs and outstretched heroes the beggars' shadows. Then our beggars, those panhandlers on the street, the guys holding, unemployed, looking for work, hungry, etc. He says, their bodies, they're the substantial things, and what? Our kings and emperors are shadows of them. This is an idea Hamlet's going to bring up later. Let's go to the court. Okay? So they keep talking, and Hamlet finally tells them, I know why you guys are here. You're here to spy on me. Okay? And Guildenstern finally admits it, line 276. My lord, we were sent for. And Hamlet tells them why they were sent for. I will tell you why. Line 279. Wherefore I know not, I have lost all my mirth, forgone all custom of exercises. It goes so heavily with my disposition that this goodly frame, the earth, seems to me, condition contrary to fact, a sterile promontory. This most excellent canopy, the air, look you. This brave o'erhanging firmament, this majestical roof fretted with golden fire. It's like he's looking at just a drop-dead gorgeous sunset. Why, it appeareth nothing to me but a foul and pestilent congregation of vapors. In other words, shadows. What a piece of work is a man. He doesn't mean a male human. He means humanity. What a piece of work is humanity. How noble in reason, how infinite in faculties, in form and moving, how express and admirable. In action, like an angel. In apprehension, that is understanding, how like a god. The beauty of the world, that is the pinnacle, the highest, greatest, most wondrous thing in creation. And yet, to me, what is this quintessence of dust? Quintessence, the final, ultimate reality of dust. Why? Genesis. For from dust thou art, and to dust thou shalt go. Is Hamlet putting on an antic disposition for his friends? Or is Hamlet putting on an antic disposition for his friends and at the same time also being honest? Does Hamlet really think this is it? We're just mud. We're just walking mud, and then we die. Well, keep that question in mind when we get to Act 5 especially. So, they tell Hamlet there are some actors, some players coming in, and Hamlet gets excited about that. He's like, good. He wants to see them. Page 1638. We see the first player, 1638-39. We see the first player, and the first player remembers some lines that Hamlet, talks about, and he recounts these lines from an old play. And go to the very end of that scene, page 1642. We will get to it, the end of Act 2. So the player does what in that little scene that he recounts? It's a scene based on the Trojan War, and it's Priam and Hecuba cries over the death of one of her sons, Hector. And the actor, the first player, just has tears streaming down his face. In Hamlet, they all leave, so he gets a soliloquy, pretty long one. And he says, oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I. Slave. What does being a slave imply? What does he lack? Freedom. Ability to act on his own. Is it not monstrous that this player, in a fiction, in a dream of passion, could force his soul so to his own conceit that from her working all his visage waned, that is, his face went white. Hamlet saying, this guy in a fiction could do this, but he's a slave. Why is he not free? Because that's what he means. What did he tell his mother in his first speech? I have that within which passes show. If I were to let what's really inside of me out, what would happen to Hamlet? They'd lock him up. In fact, when they do see what Hamlet is capable of, what we're going to see in Act 3 when he kills Polonius, what does the king propose they do with Hamlet? They're going to send him to England. For what purpose? Mental health evaluation? No, he tells England, kill him. He sends Hamlet to England to be murdered. Okay? So, get down to the end of Hamlet's soliloquy. We don't have time. We'll pick up on with that last soliloquy and get into Act 3. We might get through Act 3 on Wednesday. No, don't expect a quiz. We'll probably have a quiz on Friday.